This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America, and I sure am glad to have you with me. The phone number here today, 877-973-7425. If you would like to be on the program, always glad to have you with me. Text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777 should you wish to be a part of the program. It is an open line Friday as well, 877-973-7425. We got to begin with two separate stories. And they are rather big stories. They were signs of things to come. We got to go back in the Wayback Machine. I had to remind myself of the details. In 2006, a student and single mother from NCCU who worked as a stripper and prostitute. Her name was Crystal Mangum. She claimed that the Duke men's lacrosse team had gang raped her. Mike Nifong was the Durham County District Attorney, and he decided he was going to make an example of the privileged white players at Duke University. David Evans, Reed Seligman, and Colin Finnerty. They went to Duke. They were from well-to-do families. They were white. They were bad. It was white privilege. A lady you all know, Nancy Grace. Really, she was already famous, but even more so with their coverage of the Duke lacrosse rape trial. A lot of people made their name in that case. Susan Estrich became a regular TV commentator, among others, from the Duke lacrosse rape case. It was a very big deal. Very big deal. And anyone who suggested we wait and see, very much like later in life we would have the University of Virginia accusations against the fraternity there, and anyone who suggested, let's wait and see, innocent until proven guilty, was vilified. Amanda Marcotte, a feminist blogger, said anyone who defended the Duke lacrosse players were, quote-unquote, rape-loving scum. There was a massive lynch mob led by USA Today, the Herald Sun, Rolling Stone, the New York Times, and others. The Independent Weekly, I'm just going to read this from Wikipedia as it is, wrote articles affirming the stereotypes of affluence with respect to the three accused. The only position cited was the description of the player's character by faculty member Peter Wood. Well, the case began to unravel. In fact, the Duke lacrosse player's attorney actually called into question the veracity of Crystal Mangum and the truth. On August 25th, 2006, the New York Times published a front-page article by Duff Wilson and Jonathan Glader stating the weaknesses in the case highlighted by the defense were not indicative of the strength of the case as a whole. This is a direct quote. In several important areas, the full files reviewed by the New York Times contain evidence stronger than that highlighted by the defense. The New York Times went further and indicated, quote, there is also a body of evidence to support the district attorney's decision to take the matter to the jury. Now, at the time, there were lots of criticisms of the article that you didn't name any of those things you said made the case strong, but the national media said the case was strong. Nancy Grace said the case was strong. Lots and lots of people said the case was strong. Guess what? The jury exonerated them. They were not rapists. Many people said didn't matter, they were still awful. Paul Azan at the time on CNN said, quote, the DA would not be proceeding with this case if he didn't believe that this alleged victim had been raped. She demanded of John Cheshire, the defense attorney, how do you explain the woman's injuries, particularly the internal injuries? Wasn't his client's. But they didn't care. The media didn't care. In fact, a lot of people who doubled down, including Nancy Grace, on the fact that these Duke lacrosse players back in 2006 who were guilty, clearly guilty. Look at them, white, privileged, rich dudes. How dare they? Conservative backgrounds, Duke. Clearly they were guilty of something. After the jury exonerated the Duke lacrosse team, Nancy Grace went on vacation. She let somebody else handle the not guilty verdict. Julianne Malveaux, who was the incoming Bennett College president and a USA Today columnist, said that they were hooligans who did not deserve an apology, even though their lives were ruined. They were accused of rape, and not just accused of rape, but the National Press Corps took the side of the single mother stripper prostitute Crystal Mangum, and regardless, they trashed the guys. There was no innocence until proven guilty, none of that. They just immediately went out and they did this to those guys. I bring this story up today because Crystal Mangum, the alleged victim, has now, all these years later, admitted she made the whole thing up. She made the whole thing up. It was never true. Those young men's lives were ruined at the time, and she made it up. It's sad. This is the quote highlighted by Casey Johnson, a professor of history at Brooklyn College. Quote, I testified falsely against the lacrosse players by saying they raped me when they didn't. I made up a story that wasn't true. I hope they can forgive me. Professors at that university excoriated these young men. The reporters did. Columnists did. Many people came to fame on television as pundits, commenting on how these guys, they were clearly involved in something awful. '88 Duke professors, sometimes called the Gang of '88, placed an ad in the Chronicle referring to the circumstances surrounding the allegations as a social disaster, quoted anonymous individuals citing racism and sexism in the Duke community, said they were turning up the volume. It was all made up. You had the University of Virginia case in Rolling Stone with allegations, and a lot of people at the time cited the Duke case and said, you can't believe this stuff is true. And those people, myself included, were vilified at the time of the University of Virginia case for daring to say it's probably not true. It was all made up. Turns out, all made up. I say all of this, and I bring this back up again, not just because Crystal Mangum is speaking up, but because ProPublica, which has done hit jobs on Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito, Amy Coney Barrett, and others trying to discredit the Supreme Court, attempted to discredit Pete Hegseth the other day with a story that he did not go to West Point. He claimed he was admitted to West Point and chose not to go, and they called West Point, and twice West Point said there was no record of Pete Hegseth ever applying, letting alone being admitted. And they emailed Pete Hegseth and said, you have 1 hour to respond, or we're going to do a story that you lied. Pete Hegseth responded with his letter of admission to West Point. And the editor at ProPublica says, oh, well, I mean, look, journalism worked. We reached out. We asked. He had the letter. Here's the problem. Had he not had the letter readily available, they would have run a story that he lied about entry to West Point. They wanted to run the story that he lied about it. I kind of wish Hegseth had waited until they ran the story. They chose to put the burden of proof on him. It's what the media does. They did it with the lacrosse players at Duke. The justice system says they're innocent until proven guilty, and the media said they were guilty until proven innocent. And then when proven innocent, members of the media said, well, they did something wrong clearly, so I'm not going to apologize. They're still dirty, awful, racist, bigot, privileged white kids. Same with the University of Virginia. Well, oh, yeah, okay, clearly it was a lie, but, I mean, these are white fraternity guys. They're not deserving of any sort of apology. Pete Hegseth, they're like, oh, well, shouldn't the story be with ProPublica that individuals within West Point twice lied to them? Isn't that the story? The government lied to try to destroy someone who will be in charge of them? Shouldn't it be a big story that West Point lied to try to defame a potential Secretary of Defense to stop him from getting the job where he will have some oversight of him? Seems like that should be a big national story, but no. ProPublica says, turns out there's no story here. Why is there no story? Because they wanted to vilify Pete Hegseth. They didn't want to vilify the bureaucrats. One of the things we're seeing time and time again now with the media is with their biases towards the Democrats, it's about propping up the bureaucracy and protecting the bureaucracy from the politicians elected by the people. They don't want Donald Trump to have the power of the bureaucracy. You'd think they'd want to gut the bureaucracy. No, they want the bureaucracy to have that power. And they don't like the fact that Donald Trump might be able to end some of that power. So here they come with Pete Hegseth, who has pledged to rein in the federal bureaucracy within the Defense Department, and the bureaucrats in charge of West Point try to defame him twice, not once, but twice. It should be a national story. But ProPublica says, nope, there's no story here. You know and I know damn well that if Pete Hegseth did not have his letter of acceptance, it'd be a national story. And it would be on the front page of the New York Times. It'd be a lead story on CNN that he lied about getting into West Point. And then when he revealed the letter, they'd say, oh, it's probably a forgery. Dan Rather lied about George W. Bush's military service with forged documents, and to this day, the press still heralds him as some sort of truth teller. They protect their own. They defame the right. They defame white privileged kids at Duke. They never apologize. They never admit they're wrong. To tie it to another story, you guys in the press, y'all are the ones who keep adding butts to Luigi Mangione's murder of a CEO, allegedly. Don't think people aren't going to say, yeah, I mean, I know these reporters, they don't deserve to die, but they keep slandering people. Somebody's going to take action. They're seeding the stories of violence against them, and they don't even care. They don't care because they've picked a side, and the narrative for that side is more important to them than the truth. To this day, many of the people who vilified the Duke lacrosse players, including Nancy Grace, never apologized. And none of the people lying about Pete Hegseth will ever apologize. They'll say, well, I mean, he supports Donald Trump. Clearly, there's something wrong with him. And these people will be placed on the ash heap of history over time. Welcome back. I got to correct myself on the Duke lacrosse. It's been so long. It was 2006. It wasn't a jury that found him not guilty. The case wound up getting dismissed. Mike Nifong, the district attorney, wound up going to jail because he collaborated with a DNA lab director to withhold exculpatory DNA. The entire case fell apart. And again, keep that in mind. It wasn't a jury. Thank you to Tim on Twitter for correcting me on that. I'd totally forgotten that. I knew Nifong went to jail for his handling of the case, but the case got thrown out. He was disbarred, and he wound up going to jail for withholding exculpatory evidence from DNA. And Nancy Grace refused to apologize, as did everyone else who doubled down. It's absolutely wild. Now, it's an open line Friday. The phone number is 877-973-7425 if you want to be on the program. But I want to pause and play something for you. I saw this on social media. This is from Channel 4 in Britain. This is a young girl. She has severe autism. She has to be helped on a stage. She can't really see well. And just listen to this. Again, they're having to help her put her hands on the keyboard of the piano.
Say that often at the end of a performance,
yes,
Lucy covers her ears.
She likes the applause, but she doesn't like the sound of the applause.
Yes.
So her fingers go in her ears for sensory reasons.
Yes. I don't have to tell people not to.
She loves applause.
Okay, fine.
100%.
Ready? In a minute you're going to play Nocturne in B flat minor by Chopin. Just start playing. See? Here we go.
She can't even see. Her head turns back and forth constantly. She's looking up instead of down. She has no music in front of her. And on it goes, and everyone is mesmerized by this girl with severe autism who can't even look down. We are wonderfully and fearfully made. It was mesmerizing to watch that. Now, I got to tell you about the Eden Pure Thunderstorm before I get out of here. It is, you can get 3 of them. You can save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. You use the discount code ERIC3, ERICK3 at EdenPureDeals.com, and you will get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms. They will get rid of pollen, dander, dust. They get rid of 99.9% of bacteria and viruses. They generate plasma that wipe them out, and they generate ozone that kills any odor. Any odor can't withstand it because odors are caused by ions that are attracted to the ozone particles, and when they touch, they neutralize each other. You go to EdenPureDeals.com, you put in Eric 3, you get one for upstairs, downstairs, your basement, your travel bag, your RV, wherever you need them. You save $200. You can hold it in your hand and keep it in your travel bag and plug it up with a USB cord if you need to, or directly into the wall. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code ERIC3, ERICK3, no space, at EdenPureDeals.com. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. It is an open line Friday. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you wish to be on the program. In fact, I want to go to Don here, who's been sitting here waiting. Don, welcome to the show. How are you?
Very good. How are you doing today?
Great. What's going on?
Well, there's a good book about that Duke Lacrosse case. I believe the title is Guilty Until Proven Innocent. And there's numerous things, like, for instance, they did a lineup. Now, if you do a lineup, I didn't know this until I read the book, you know, if they think you did the crime, they put you in a lineup with 5 police officers, all in street clothes. Mm-hmm. So if I'm the one who saw it, I can pick out one out if I know you're. What they did on the Duke Lacrosse case, the only people they put up for the lineup were Duke Lacrosse players. She could not pick a wrong answer. One of the three guys that was charged, I don't know which one, but one of the three that was charged was at an ATM 10 minutes away when this was going on. They knew that for a fact, even though they charged him.
I remember
that. And another one was there were two girls that went over that night to their home. The one girl said nothing happened. She, they asked her. She said, "I don't know what she's talking about." There are a number of things there about.
The case, I had forgotten at the earlier, and I'm glad people reminded me that it was dismissed. And Nifong he got disbarred. He went to jail.
Yep.
It was, deservedly so. Justice got done. I got to say, Don, and thanks very much for the phone call. A buddy of mine texted this morning. He says, between Crystal Mangum admitting she lied, Daniel Penny's going to the Army-Navy game with J.D. Vance, ProPublica's getting blasted for trying to lie about Pete Hegseth, justice is happening. Whether we want to believe it or not, whether we want to recognize it or not, there's a level of justice happening. And it's true. What a wild week we've had. The whole thing is to see this sort of stuff happen. Scripture says your sins will find you out. And over time, I think that's the case. And, I might as well say it here. I take comfort in the whole idea of people going to hell. And I know people cringe when I say that, but there are times we don't get justice in this lifetime. Hitler committed suicide so he would not face justice in this world. Hitler faced the living God of all creation and faced justice. The doctrine of hell gives me comfort. I sleep well at night knowing that bad men may get away with bad things in this world, but they're not going to get away with it in the next. But yet we're seeing here now some remarkable displays of justice, of juries getting things right, and of truth overwhelming someone's conscience enough that she finally has to come forward and tell the truth. I think that matters, and it's worth noting. Bill, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show, Bill. How are you?
Hi, Eric. This is E-Bike Bill from Maryland's Eastern Shore, wishing you a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
And I'm hoping that we can say Merry Christmas without the risk of offending anybody.
I got to tell you, so I was on Delta last night, and every time one of the flight attendants or someone said Happy Holidays to me, I looked them back in the face. I said, Merry Christmas. And they all smiled and said, Merry Christmas to you too, and seemed very happy that I had said Merry Christmas.
I do the same thing, Eric. I really do. But first thing is, I want to know, are you going to be putting on your email show notes a playlist for your Christmas music?
Yes, I am building the playlist right now. I will have it done by this afternoon, and I will make sure everybody has it.
Oh, great. Well, the question I have, or if you could comment on it, is the billions of dollars that the American people, taxpayers, have paid for the border wall. From what I understand, the Biden administration is selling it as scrap for pennies on the dollar. Mm-hmm. And that's just unconscionable. And what can be done about it?
So I'm glad you bring this up. For those of you who haven't heard the story, the Biden administration knows that Donald Trump wants to rebuild the border wall. So the Biden administration is selling the fragments of the wall, the scrap metal and things they were using to build the wall. They're selling it, and they're selling it for like 3 cents on the dollar to try to get rid of it before Trump comes in to undermine his ability. My personal view on this, Bill, is that there are enough Republican billionaires out there. They should buy all of the parts of the wall at this massive discount, and then on January 21st, either donate them back to the government and get a tax deduction, or sell them right back for the same amount and just take the money right back. That's my personal view. Is you let them Get somebody out there right now, buy this. I mean, they're selling the steel that's used for the border wall for like 3 cents on the dollar. So buy it, some Republican billionaire somewhere, buy it up, and on January 21st, sell it back to the government or donate it to the government and takes a tax deduction, offset your taxes. I personally think that should be done. There's no way to stop the Biden administration from doing this. They're allowed to sell the parts, unfortunately. So you can't stop them. You can't enjoin them. Maybe some court somewhere could tie it up in litigation until January 20th, but typically you can't. It's just absurd to me that they would do this. But this is what we can expect from the Democrats. They're doing their best to undermine Donald Trump before he gets in office. Remember, when George W. Bush got elected, they broke all the W's off the keyboards of the White House, and people were prosecuted for it. Damage to federal property. But they wanted to undermine George W. Bush, and now the Democrats want to do the same thing to Donald Trump, and I don't think they're going to be able to. And this is part of the problem the Democrats have. I got to read for you, actually, this Twitter thread. I got to be honest with you, I saw it, and I laughed when I saw this Twitter thread. It is from David Leonhardt at the New York Times. Just now, he's senior writer for the New York Times. I'm going to read you part of his thread. Some defenders of the Biden administration continue to argue that its policies weren't the main reason that immigration soared, or even argue that the administration didn't actually loosen policy. These claims are inconsistent with the evidence. I'll lay it out here. The Biden administration loosened immigration policy in many ways. It celebrated doing so. The changes weren't a secret. Start with the Democratic Party's 2020 platform on immigration. It talked almost exclusively about making it easier for people to enter the country. The 2020 Democratic platform never mentioned border security, and most threats of border are about expanding entry. Then look at Biden's campaign. His main message was come. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you can come. Once Biden took office, he immediately loosened immigration policy. He ended Trump's Remain in Mexico. Biden rescinded an order that called for the prompt removal of undocumented immigrants. He halted construction of the wall. All those moves were in February 2021. To be clear, there are strong arguments in favor of the policy moves, and there are strong arguments against them. But Biden obviously loosened immigration policy. Was Biden's loosening of immigration policy the main reason that immigration surged? Biden's loosening certainly wasn't the only reason. COVID reduced migration. The pandemic's end led to catch-up. Chaos in Venezuela, Ukraine, Haiti, and elsewhere caused people to flee. But they aren't the main reason the U.S. just experienced the largest immigration surge in history. There are always push factors. The clearest evidence that Biden's loosening was the main cause of the surge has come this year. Biden aides spent 22 and 2023 claiming their policies weren't the surge's main cause, and then under political pressure, sharply restricted immigration policy in 2024. And what happened? Immigration plunged. That's David Leonhardt telling truths at the New York Times, truths that could have been told at any time, and they chose not to. The media, complicit with the Democrats, chose not to tell the American public the truth, but to lie to them. Same with the economy. I pointed this out yesterday and earlier this week when the New York Times story came out. Why are they just now telling us? And along the way, you have a bunch of young Democratic progressives saying the problem is that we've lost the ability to persuade. Friends, I'm not going to put it as bluntly as I did on social media because there may be kids listening. But the problem is not persuasion on the Democratic Party side. Democrats do not have a persuasion problem. They have a problem thinking that you can put boys with boy parts in girl sports, chicks with in girl sports. They have a problem using Latinx instead of Latino or Hispanic. They have a problem by supporting open border. They have a problem by using the phrase undocumented migrant instead of illegal alien and accusing you of racism if you say illegal alien. They have a problem with saying unhoused when it's a homeless problem and by saying pregnant person instead of pregnant woman. They are bat crap crazy when it comes to these sorts of issues. It has nothing to do with persuasion. It has to do with the fact that normal people don't talk the way Democrats talk, and normal people don't believe the things Democrats believe. Normal people want their kids to get an education, and Democrats can't even get pornography out of elementary school libraries because they say it's censoring books. Normal people don't think their kindergartner needs to know what the gender unicorn is. They need to learn how to read, and yet Democrats are heralding progressive teachers who want to talk about the gender unicorn and the pastel colors of the new pride flag. Democrats believe that police officers are bad and need to be defunded when poor families in poor communities want the police to keep them safe. And I'm sorry, Democrats, but when you're out there supporting socialism to a bunch of Hispanic voters who have fled socialist regimes, you're not really helping yourself win friends and influence people. It doesn't have to do with persuasion. It has to do with your stupid ideas. If you secure the border, you're tough on crime, and you keep boys out of girls' sports, you might be able to do a lot of the other stuff you want to do. But when you can't do that stuff, nobody wants you in charge because you come across as absolutely insane, and it has nothing to do with persuasion. You're not going to persuade a parent that a boy should be on the girls' sports team. You're not going to persuade a Latino voter that they should call themselves Latinx. You're not going to persuade someone who fled Venezuela that we need Venezuelan economic policy in this country. You're just not going to do it. It has nothing to do with persuasion and everything to do with you people have lost the plot. Instead, what they do is scream at the rest of us that we're bigots. And nobody cares when Democrats call you a racist or a bigot anymore, because the biggest racists and bigots people can see in America today are the Democrats who think Latino voters are just dumb and think that men voting for Donald Trump are a bunch of racist bigots, and then lecture black voters on what's best in their interests from a white perspective. Spare me your outrage. And then the Democrats, when you disagree with them, they try to punish you, including getting your bank account canceled if you're too conservative or you own too many guns. That's why I like Old Glory Bank. I never have to worry about my bank account being canceled at Old Glory Bank. I have my checking account, my savings account with Old Glory Bank, and I love them. I've actually invested in the bank. I like them so much. They are by conservatives, for conservatives. They can do business checking. They can do individual checking and savings. They can do CDs and mortgages and business loans and lines of credit and equity and car loans, and you name it. They're a real bank, and they have great interest rates, by the way, on their savings accounts. OldGloryBank.com. OldGloryBank.com. You can go to OldGloryBank.com. You can fill out the form online at OldGloryBank.com. You can get your account from OldGloryBank.com online within 8 minutes. I did. That's how I started. Well, a year before they started advertising on the program. And you can develop a relationship with a bank that really wants your business, by conservatives, for conservatives. OldGloryBank.com. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number, 877-973-7425, should you wish to be on the program. This hour of the program is brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. If you need access to capital, if you need to move fast and you got good credit, you're growing your business, First Liberty might be able to help you. All you have to do is go to firstlibertyga.com. The Frost family's been doing this since the 90s. They're still the ones in charge. You're not going to have a lender rollover every time you reach out to them. They are really good people, and they help businesses across the country. So go to firstlibertyga.com. All their contact info is there. See if they're a fit for you and you're a fit for them. firstlibertyga.com. All right, Lewis, I got time. I want to go to your phone call here. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Eric. I want to ask you your 4 to 5 year vision while Trump's in office. Do you feel like we'll continue with the Democrats in the majority, or do you feel like there's going to be another Democrat president after the 4 years, or you think that J.D. Vance will succeed him? And I just want to know what your vision is there, how you think it's going to play out, because he's only got
that's
a
good
window.
question. So, Lewis, is my vision for how do I see this playing out over the next 4 to 5 years with the GOP? I think the Democrats probably can capture the House in the midterms in 2026. The party in the White House, with the exception of Bush in 2002 and Biden in 2022, the party in the White House tends to do bad. Trump probably alienates some people, although I got to tell you, if the Donald Trump we're seeing right now is the Donald Trump we're seeing in 2 years, that may not be the case. He seems far more reasonable, far more moderate, frankly, than he did 4 years ago. He's less antagonistic, less alienating to people. He's got a majority popular approval rating right now in this country. The views on Trump from black voters and young voters has shifted pretty dramatically towards the positive. So if he can pull that off, but the House majority is just so small, I think they keep the Senate and probably lose the House in 2 years. Here's the thing. If Republicans can fix the economy, I think J.D. Vance can get elected in 4 years. If the Republicans make the economy worse, if we slide into a recession, whether you blame the Federal Reserve or the Democrats or corporations, whether you blame Donald Trump or not, presidents get blamed when the economy goes bad, even if you don't blame them. Most people do. And that'll hurt Vance in 4 years. But if the economy feels better to people in 4 years, I don't think people return the Democrats to power. Also, I think the Democrats are about to get even more crazy. Here's my personal view. I think Democrats are rapidly consolidating around the view that Trump's margin of victory was so small, he has no mandate, and there is no reason for them to change. It was just Joe Biden, and Joe Biden was the problem. It wasn't boys with boy parts played in girls' sports. It wasn't actually the economic policies they pursued. It wasn't their rhetoric against police. It wasn't their cultural, social policies that don't align with most people. It was just Joe Biden sucked. And Trump stole it, essentially. I think the Democrats are headed there. Denial ain't just a river in Egypt. They cannot process, frankly, why they lost. Because to admit it is to reject them. And they can't bring themselves to acknowledge being rejected by the voters for what they stand for. We're going to have an angry Democratic Party for this. They're always angry. It's one thing, by the way, I think that we need to learn on our side is don't be angry. Our ways aren't their ways. Our fights aren't their fights. We don't have to do things the way Democrats do things. We do not have to be angry. Pursuing a level of rage and anger is going to be counterproductive for us. Now, when we come back, we need to talk about the UFOs in New Jersey, because some of them appear to actually be airplanes, some of them appear to be something else entirely, and some of them appear to be a social contagion where people are seeing a Southwest jet and saying, oh my gosh, it's a drone. I'll explain and tell you what I know when we come back, and the fury from the Defense Department over what Joe Biden's not letting them do.